think the best witnesses are going to follow me, not me, but just the overview is, we know last year that we heard about a medical bill, and this would relate to all the professions, that there were doctors literally driven to suicide after they were confronted by the investigator of the medical board. The person that did that still works for the medical board. Thankfully, she's no longer the disciplinary investigator or counsel. She's been moved to, I've been told, and they can come to the table and contradict me, the best information I have is that she's been shifted to education, continuing education for the medical board, where she still gets $200,000. But I think...
All right, I'm not patient anymore. Let's get to the bill.
Okay, but I think that shows the gravity of the matter when a disciplinary council can drive multiple physicians to suicide. Also, what we know and has been documented is that members of the medical board destroyed the practices of their competitors systematically. If I'm asked to name names, I will. I'm not wanting to go out of my way.
And I would just say this, and I understand, and I appreciate your comments about a board that you're complaining about. I will tell you that in my conversations with members of the committee and other people, that they're not opposed to what we try to do to remedy a bad situation. I think the biggest argument against your bill has been the sweeping nature of there are a lot of boards and commissions that are being drawn into this that have never had any problem. And and as you know, I have been very active in complaints against the Board of Dentistry based upon personal experiences that I witnessed, and I believe last year your bill took care of them and the auctioneers. So that seems to be the
well. And actually, I've heard complaints from other professions, but basically, Louisiana is a state. And I'm sorry, did I interrupt your point, Mr. Chairman?
No, not at all.
Louisiana state is a state that has an abundance of regulatory boards. What's significant about these boards, they exercise governmental power, but Senator Appel, there's virtually no checks and balances. There's almost no judicial review. The information that we were given last year is that it's virtually unheard of for a court to ever overturn a licensing board. We heard the horror stories, and I have from professionals around the state of being called in to be subject to inquisition, told that their lawyer can come as long as he stays in the other room, he can't be present. The stories of the board being the judge, jury, and executioner. By the way, I want to point out that I have had a discussion about this bill with Senator Mills. He did not have a chance to study it specifically, but he did say that he is in favor of due process, and he says that as someone who's been very active in analyzing the boards, he thinks it's very important to have independent due process. What we do in the bill, I started out with a very comprehensive licensee's Bill of Rights. After hearing from some concerns from boards, we reboiled it down to five fundamental rights. Number one, the right to have the case decided by an administrative law judge. And I have asked the head of Louisiana's Division of Administrative Law to be here to answer any questions that you might have. So you can have your hearing can be held by an ALJ. And by the way, that's a reciprocal right, the board or the licensee. Number two, you have a right to counsel at all stages of the proceedings. Number three, you have a right to get a copy of your own file. And that sounds crazy, but I was friends with a doctor who had a complaint filed against him by the medical board that went years of requests without even getting a copy of his own file. So it's an ALJ, the right to have your own file, the right to conduct discovery under the law, and the right to a standard of clear and convincing evidence for a suspension or revocation. And other than that, right to counsel. And that is...
This is your amendment, right?
Right, that is the amendment.
Okay. Why don't we do this, Senator? I'll offer the amendment. I'll offer the amendment for discussion purposes. So, I assume we can tell the board, the committee, that you are discussing the bill in its amended form. Okay, thank you.
We met after...
Is there any objection to that amendment? That amendment is adopted. Thank you.
And, the short story is that we heard concerns about the complexity and length of the bill, so we boiled it down. We don't even prescribe an entire procedure. Instead, we carve out and honor a few basic fundamental rights. And, the specter of government power, as legislators, we're subject to all kinds of checks and balances. The courts can invalidate our decrees. The governor can propose or pursue administrative agendas with which we don't agree. There's a public record of every single vote we make. There's a public record of every contribution. These agencies, and by the way, I want to make clear, some of them have done a very good job, but we think that it's valid to have these rights across the board for every professional licensee. Number one, how does it affect our economy? Well, there are licensees that have told us they've left Louisiana, including highly capable licensees. Number two, there's licensees that have lost their ability to make a living and contribute. Number three, particularly with respect to patients and doctors, patients have lost their health care providers. And last year, we had testimony, and I know I've spoken to a couple of physicians. Patients died when they had their licenses taken away from them without hearing. So we feel like this due process does provide some checks and balances. And by the way, the United States Supreme Court has weighed in on this issue, not specifically in the context of due process, but when the Supreme Court has said is that they have recognized the problem of regulatory agencies there's no one that has oversight over them. We don't know what they do. We don't grade their paper. We don't sit there and watch their hearings. We don't have the right to tell them they've done wrong. And the media doesn't report them. Their hearings are typically not public. They're working in, without oversight. But the power that they possess to take away someone's license, to destroy their livelihood, and, of course, the tragedy drive people to take their own lives. The Supreme Court case is the case out of the United States Supreme Court. Let's see, I believe I have a copy of it. It's the North Carolina case, and I apologize. I don't want to delay the committee anymore. I'll try to get it for you by the end of the hearing. Simply says that in order for antitrust protections to protect these licensing agencies, there has to be some real oversight by the state. We don't have it. They're doing whatever they want. And the good boards are doing good things. I want to commend the Louisiana Dental Board. Last year, they took the courageous step, which was a step forward not just for the Dentists of Louisiana, but for I believe, every professional licensee in the state, which they said, we do not object to allow an administrative law judge to decide our cases. And Dr. Hickam made that decision. It was a very courageous decision. Again, we do acknowledge, Senator Martini, that when there was corruption in the past with the Dental Association, with the Dental Board, that you did hold their feet to the fire. There has been a change of personnel. I'll finish with this so you can hear from the other witnesses. And by the way, I do want to point out that what the Supreme Court says is that because board members are often active market participants, for them to be regulating their competitors without some state oversight, regulation, or participation renders those state agencies, those state boards, not entitled to sovereign immunity. They can be sued. And I just feel that we have boiled this bill down to some very functional elements of due process, and ask if the committee has any questions for me before I defer to professionals that are here to testify.
Senator Peacock, are your questions for Senator Milkovich? Senator Peacock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Milkovich, basically your bill now is your amendment.
That's it. Yes, sir.
And when I read this amendment, it says here, the notice requiring that shall provide with full disclosure of the content of his file, including but not limited to the name of the person who initiated the complaint, along with a detailed description of the complaint against the Okay. So you have a nurse who works in a hospital. They see something that's not right. They want their job. They want to keep their job. But they are seeing something that's not being done correct. The way I understand it, they can make a complaint saying this is not right, and then the medical board would open an investigation to find out if what their claims are true. If you don't protect that nurse from being punished for saying something's not right here, that nurse could lose her job or his job. Fear that because you might have a doctor who operates as a big rainmaker for the hospital. How does this work? Because when you say full disclosure, that is, I understand what you're saying, that you should always be able to face your accuser. But this isn't the case when you're dealing with health care and maybe something wasn't right and that nurse wants to report it saying this wasn't right or these prescriptions were
I
being
get your, I
taken out
definitely
the
get
right
your point,
way.
Senator Peacock.
But when you say full disclosure,
But
I
Well-
believe if this bill passes, even with this amendment, that you will never have a whistleblower come forward because they will be fearful for their position in the organization they work for. And I think with the structure that these boards have tried to set up is they want someone, and when they see something, say something, but they don't want
depends on the
to be punished for saying something. And I think if you have full disclosure, that person. So do you agree with that, or do you feel like that's a issue that, how do you balance that?
And it's a great question. I think, and listen, I mean, if the committee passes this basic scaled-down Bill of Rights for all the licensees of Louisiana, the many, many thousands of people that are subject to regulatory boards, I would be willing to consider an amendment that would protect the identity of the informant for some period of time. Obviously, I believe under the principles of due
Some
process.
period of time, if there's you can't say some period of, I mean, you have to
Well-
protect a whistleblower.
Well, let me ask you this. If someone makes an accusation against any member of this committee and said that you collected a campaign payment, and all of a sudden the Ethics Commission says that you took a contribution during a time period when you were not, at some point, if the complainant wants to press that complaint and come before a board, I think you have a right to confront and cross-examine. That's central
But that's
to
done in a
the United States
private-
Constitution under the Fifth Amendment of the Bill of Rights.
Private, and that's a different, but I understand that's a private thing, and that's done so it's not made political. But we're on your bill, so
Well,
we're looking at your bill,
I understand.
not the complaint here. That's my issue with this. I think you're trying to defend your clients, which I commend you for doing that. But I think the
Well,
structure that
Senator
these
Peacock,
boards
I
have-
do not have any clients that I'm representing in front of regulatory boards at present, and in my entire career, probably less than 5. So this is a bill for licensees. It's not about my law practice. And I think you understand that because there's people in your district, in fact, your former dentist that testified last year and this year about how he got shafted. I will tell you that I think if someone wants to testify against someone in any civil or criminal proceeding, I do believe that you have the right to know them and confront them and cross-examine them.
This isn't criminal. This is
but
a
the right-
regulatory board.
But this is this is the due process clause of the United States Constitution, including the 14th Amendment and the 4th Amendment. We have a right to not be deprived of life, liberty, or freedom without due process of law. And the United States Supreme Court has said that your ability
Have
to
the freedom to practice medicine without reaching certain standards.
Actually, Senator Peacock, you absolutely, if you have a license, you cannot be deprived of your license without due process of law. The federal jurisprudence is clear that your ability to make a
There's certain
living
requirements
is.
for that license.
I understand that, but it's property, and it can be taken away, but it's constitutionally protected. It cannot be taken away without due process of law. So what I can agree with you, if this amendment would fix it, I can potentially consider an amendment that would render the initial complainant anonymous unless and until they wanted to bring testimony or evidence. But at that point, I believe that the right to confront and cross-examine, and you can say that this is only,
Then
this
you'll
is
never, and I'm gonna have to disagree with you, and I'm not gonna support it. Whenever a whistleblower and I'm gonna use the nurse as an example, comes forward, they see something that's not right, and when they're trying to protect the patients, and they are reporting something to the medical board, and they had the fear that they would be made public, they wouldn't ever come forward.
Well,
and
and-
that's a problem that I have with your bill. And
So,
it
but
doesn't seem
basically
like
what
that's
you're
something-
saying then is whether are you saying that it's of no moment to you that thousands of licensees in Louisiana are routinely deprived of their due process? That thousands of licensees in
not-
Louisiana.
I mean,
and
that's
you're,
your
You're
point,
interrupting
but-
me, Barrow. I try not to.
But that's my point.
You're my
of
fellow
doing-
Shreveport senator, but I try not to interrupt you.
Well,
And you did.
but you don't get to ask us questions. We ask you questions
Okay.
in this format.
Okay,
So
I understand, but I'll answer your question. And I apologize for asking you a question. But I will say that I think it's a matter of great moment to the thousands of licensees in Louisiana that their entitlement, that their ability to make a living. For example, doctors may study for 20 years to obtain a medical degree and then lose their medical degree in a corrupt Star Chambers proceedings. And I think you remember last year, you may remember from the testimony, that the disciplinary counsel for the medical board was basically shaking down doctors who had maybe done a little bit wrong, maybe done nothing wrong, maybe she was taking out somebody whose competitor was on the board, and after she shook them down, she threatened them, basically told them they'd have to pay a bunch of money, told them that they didn't sign a consent agreement, that they would be sent to a drug and rehab clinic, even if they did not even drink or use drugs. And on top of it, if they asked her, or she was making references, she was referring physicians for legal counsel to her boyfriend for legal fees. That has been happening in the state of Louisiana. And can I agree to an amendment that for the sake of protecting these fundamental constitutional rights that every licensee has to make a living and not be deprived of their license without due process of law, could I agree with keeping a complainant anonymous? I can, unless and until it gets to the point where they say, I am a witness to this person doing this wrong, this wrong act, and you need to take their license away. If they want to say that, if they want to actually provide evidence to take away someone's livelihood, I believe in cross-examination and the right to confront, which is fundamental to Western civilization, fundamental to justice, fundamental to the United States of America, the legal and civil and civic traditions of the United States of America.
That's not exactly true.
Well, I think it is.
No, that's not exactly true. That you have a right to confront and cross-examine anybody in certain other, and I apologize for jumping in,
absolutely.
but that's just not true. And
Well-
there are all these boards that operate in this state, most of which operate considering due process. So if you're suggesting there is no due process until we adopt your bill, that's wrong. You got a different, and I commend you. You want to go further. You want to say this is a lot more serious than the regular, your regular run-of-the-mill thing. But we don't have these complaints. We do have oversight. We have oversight over. The dental board
When's the last time?
would not have passed your bill and would not have done that unless this committee and I'm not taking all the credit for it. It just got brought up to me. Okay? But to suggest, that you have a right, you don't have a right to if somebody calls the dental board and says, this guy's doing such and such, I want to be kept anonymous. What you're saying is under your bill, that person, whether you tell them that it's going to be, then they're going to be kept out of that, is going to have to testify, because if not, your right to cross-examine is being violated. I don't buy into that.
Actually, a couple things. Number one, I made it very clear that not all the regulatory boards in Louisiana are abusing people's rights.
But your
and
bill
I
will require
specifically,
them to
I
do this.
specifically commended the dental board because they supported a substantial step forward in the protection of licensees' rights in Louisiana. We're talking about thousands of people, and we're talking about Louisiana's economy, and we're talking about a multi-generational reputation of good old boy cronyism and corruption. That's what's been going on in the boards. We're driving professionals out of the state. It hurts our economy. It's unfair to the licensees. And it's unfair to their patients and customers.
There are remedies. The situation you've been talking about for 2 years, and you just talked to Senator Peacock about, I can tell you right now, in fact, I told one of the gentlemen you had testify last week, 42 U.S.C. 1983. Now, we're talking about bureaucratic stuff where we are handling disciplinary complaints. But let me tell you something. If somebody did what you say that lady did, she can get sued. She and her board can get sued.
She's being sued now.
Amen. Amen. That's due process.
Okay, okay. That's damages. The question is
But in order to get to that, now I apologize for interrupting, but in order to get to that, what you're saying is all of these, and I have asked staff to make a list of the number of people boards we're affecting. We're saying all of y'all have to go through this. You know?
Yeah, I guess we are saying that every board has to observe the fundaments
your version
of due process.
Of due process. That's correct.
Well, actually, Senator Martini, Mr. Chairman, with respect.
With all due respect.
With all
I got
due
it.
respect.
I've been there before.
I know. I disagree. I don't think, as much as I might like to take credit for it, Senator Milkovich did not invent the right to counsel. I did not invent the right to have disclosure of your complete file. I did not invent the right to be able to conduct civil discovery. I did not invent the idea of an impartial judge rather than the board being the judge, jury, and executioner. And I did not invent the clear and convincing
and I agree
standard.
with you.
Those are all principles.
That was my big complaint about the dental board. That's why we did what we did. That's why now, and as you say, that's why they now agree to go before the ALJ. That's great. And anybody in here who wants to say, amend me in, we want to do the same thing, I'm happy to do that. But I'm not for painting it all with the same broad brush and saying, all of y'all have to do this because some lady coerced a witness or threatened somebody. You know, that's not, well, I don't think that's what we should be about less government, not creating another level of bureaucratic.
Oh, absolutely. The problem is, the agencies are exercising, the boards are exercising governmental power, and there is no oversight. Has this committee overturned any unjust rulings that were made by any of the boards in Louisiana ever?
Yes, the answer is yes. Okay, next.
Okay, how many?
14. I don't know how many. What are you talking about?
Okay, so you're saying that there was actually a bill or a ruling?
I'm saying that when somebody brings something to our attention, we investigate it. Then or they come up with a rule, which we think.
That we actually have no legal authority to tell a board that you must reinstate someone. Now, we can gripe, we can bring heat.
Right. You're right.
But you do not.
As I told the dental board, look, I don't need to be involved in your business, but don't tell me it's none of my business. And as a result, that's what we did, and we fixed it.
Well,
all right. And I'm not going to sit here and say there is no due process unless Senator Milkovich's bill passes that grants you all these rights. You keep creating all these rights. That's the same argument I made against your oral argument thing. If you've got a right to it, you have right to meaningful oral argument or just run-of-the-mill oral argument. I don't know. You do have a right to due process, and the courts can decide whether or not we do it.
I guess if you're saying we have a right to due process, then seemingly you should not have an objection to the bill, because all this is doing is it's carving out that entitlement and making it a matter of law. Okay. I understand that you've made contributions, and I commended you from the floor of the Senate last year,
and I appreciate
because you came down on the dental board for their crooked practices, which we have not talked about. People basically breaking into people's houses, getting into their records, sending spies into dental clinics.
That's all illegal.
Which was done.
Send them to my law office. I'll handle the case. That to me is it. Now, but send them with the facts, not just somebody's
Okay, so
impression.
you take those cases for free, because if you want to make that
yes,
I'll
take them for free. How's that? No, I'm not going to take them for free. All I'm trying to tell you is we're going to make.
Well, and the problem with that, Senator Martini, Chairman Martini, is that many of these professionals are now broke after paying thousands upon thousands of fees, including to the former medical board investigator's boyfriend.
So if we pass your bill, what's going to happen?
They'll have to observe.
Oh, they're done. They don't have any. You said they've already left the state, or they're out of money, or whatever. All I'm trying to tell you is this isn't a perfect system, okay? And a lot of these boards operate, and they operate in the right, and we have oversight. And when somebody complains about it, Ask Mr. McCraney, and he just walked out. Whenever he files a bill for the Motor Vehicle Commission, and we don't like it, we bring him up here. And we tell
Well,
him,
let me say this. I'm very proud to be here. Whether you, and I understand you may disagree with it, I would consider it an absolute honor to be able to advocate on behalf of the doctors, dentists, licensees, professionals, occupational specialists of the state of Louisiana.
And I appreciate your
am
passion.
absolutely honored to be able to ask that they get a fair break in black and white. Ours is a government of laws and not of men. And what that means is if you're doing something else next year, I know that maybe the law will change and we won't have term limits and you'll be back in the Senate.
I
You
doubt
could be
it.
chairman. I don't know what's going to happen. But there's a possibility that you may not be in that position next year to call the board, the dental board, and rake them over the coals and say, look, I moved you to Baton Rouge, I'll move you to Homer, Louisiana, if you don't take care. You may not be here. And our law recognizes
be here.
that justice should not depend upon a few well-placed people in the system. It should depend upon principles of law that can be enforced in the courts. And what I'm asking you all to do to simply today is to protect and respect the rights of licensees, occupations, including but not limited to our doctors and dentists. I think they're a valuable resource, that they should get a fair shake in every administrative proceeding. And
I don't disagree with
and we lose their patience, our economy takes a hit. And I'm here to advocate for the individual because I think anytime someone spends 4 years developing their profession, let alone 22, for someone to steal it behind corrupt motives or improper practices.
for you to insinuate that I'm here to try to protect these corrupt people, I think is an insult. Okay? And you may not have said it directly, okay? But while you're bragging on yourself, you're pointing the finger at me, and I don't appreciate it. Okay? Now, we're going to get on with this thing.
Okay, Chairman, I'll let the
All
other
right.
witnesses, but I'm going to respond to what you said. I wasn't referring to you,
No,
Chairman.
you didn't say it directly.
And I didn't
You
say
said
it
how
dir-
proud you are that you're here trying to protect the rights of individuals.
that's what
while
I said.
people like me are. We didn't say it. I got it though. I'm not quite as stupid as you think I am.
Okay,
I may
Chairman
be, I don't
Martini,
know.
I did not say that. I did not mean that. I did not
Well,
say it
I'm
directly or
offended by
indirectly.
it. Okay.
Well, I'm
now
sorry.
let's talk about your bill, and let's talk about whether or not. And look, you got a good idea. I just think you're going way too far. I think it's going to cost the state a ton of money. Okay, and I'm not for that since we don't have any money. Okay, and to the extent, and you're right. I won't be here anymore.
Well,
But while I have been here, when somebody brought a problem to my attention, I have moved to address it, and I've done it. You know, I'm not taking all the credit. This committee is.
and I think in all fairness, you must acknowledge that I recognize the work that you had done on behalf of dentists
I
last
agree
year.
with that. Thank you,
so
and I thank you for that.
I was not attempting to disparage you.
No.
But I understand that you're.
And as I have said, whenever somebody starts off with all due respect, get ready. Okay.
I'm going
That
to
ain't
try to
gonna-
avoid using
you know.
that phrase for the rest of this hearing.
That's good. Well, I'll use it all.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyway, thank you. We have two cards of people. Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Arlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, a point of clarity, Mr. Jones, can you put him on?
Hold
So-
on 1 second.
Is there anything out of the original bill that's been retained?
Yes,
with
sir.
This amendment? Could
Yes,
you-
sir.
Okay, could you help me point that out? What parts of the original bill, because it's.
Well, and actually, I think
The
it's been I mean, I don't think we're keeping the original bill. I think the amendment basically eliminates the original bill and replaces it with
Not
those five.
completely.
And-
That's
No.
what I'm trying, let me get
Okay,
clarity.
that was the intent, but thank you,
I'm
Senator Lamb.
Trying to
Thank
get
you.
clarity. What part
Yes,
of the
sir.
original bill is being retained?
the most of the language beginning on page 1 and going through about the middle of page 3. After that, beginning on lines 18 and 19, all the remainder of page 3, all of page 4, all of page 5, all of page 6, all of page 7, on page 8.
Is being retained?
No, sir.
Is being struck?
Yes, sir. And on page 8, lines 10 through 29 is being struck, and on page 9, lines 1 through 16. But but line 17 through 29 is being retained, and most of pages 1 and 2 and the top part of page 3 is being retained in the bill.
Okay. So the sunset in the Board of Dentistry is being, that's being struck out
Are you talking
on
about
page 9.
that is not being affected by the set of amendments.
Okay. I appreciate the clarity. Senator Milkovich, I agree with the premise of Senator Peacock, a whistleblower, a true whistleblower who does not wish to testify. If somebody brought
Sure.
a situation to light, that, and if a person brought a situation to light that an independent investigation verified and gathered evidence for,
Right.
and that person is not required, as part of the procedure, is not required to testify to. If they can independently gather enough information without disclosing, that person shouldn't be exposed. I mean, they did us a favor by exposing the wrongdoing in the beginning that led to the investigation. That person should be protected, if anything. I mean, there are whistleblower laws that are on the books now that I think this would violate.
Well,
Correct me if I'm wrong.
no, I mean, I can see your point, and I would not be, if this gets through the committee, I would not be adverse to saying that the whistleblower is protected unless and until they come to testify at a hearing. I think if they come to testify at a hearing, someone makes an accusation against any one of us, I think we have a right to question it.
No,
If-
that's
if
part
they
of the
co-
process.
If
You have
they
the
come,
right to face your accuser.
That's-
I get that.
that's-
But
and
if
I-
an
so-
independent, but if an independent investigation
and they don't have to testify.
verified, then I don't think that person.
No, I think I
should
can live
be
with that, and
retribution.
I think that's a concession. If the whistleblower never testifies against the person and their identity remains concealed, that may not be unreasonable. I will tell you that there was a situation last year where a doctor in Shreveport, who was a very fine psychiatrist, he got shaken down. He did not commit suicide. He kept fighting. He's still fighting to get his license. He reported an employee in his office who was dealing drugs. He called her and informed her on her to the police. She then retaliated and said that he was doing improper things, which he wasn't. But years later, he didn't even have a copy of the complaint, let alone did they ever tell him. They didn't even tell him what he was accused of. That's Dr. Stevens, who's a brilliant, he went to Harvard. He's a brilliant psychiatrist and a lawyer. He's got a law degree, a medical degree, and he's not practicing medicine today in Louisiana because of the medical board. But to your point, I would agree if the bill proceeds to say that the complainant can have their identity concealed unless and until the point where they testify against someone so that a person could. So I don't have a problem with considering that as an amendment.
Okay. The other thing
Yes,
that,
sir.
sitting on Senate Finance that I don't think has been addressed here, we have no fiscal note. Obviously, I think it's going to be some cost to the boards, and I would like. I'm not going to ask you to address this, but when the boards come up, I would like to them to acknowledge if they think that there would be a cost added and who would bear the cost.
And I will say this, and I hope you get a chance to talk to the young lady that's head of the Administrative Law Division. Again, I think justice is so important. I mean, I think you do.
I do not disagree.
And I sense.
Believe in due process.
Yes, you
I
do.
believe
And you believe in
the
justice.
rule of law.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
But we also, look, I'm also very mindful. There's a lot of very good bills that go to Senate Finance that we have to set aside. They're great ideas.
Yeah.
Wish we could have implemented them all. But sometimes it's about the cost and whether or not it's practical or not to enact something.
I would see, and I will remind you, Senator and yes, that's a very good point. Last year, there was a zero fiscal note because the administrative law judge said that this was something, that this was a responsibility they were willing to undertake to give the licensees of our state a fair shake before their license was stripped from them. So I don't know what the status is this year. I have
But whether or not they're willing to do that for all boards, 'cause
right,
this is a very
and then
broad bill.
that could change the
And
that
I
could
agree
change
with
the
Senator Martini. We're affecting boards that have never been bad actors.
Yeah, and this is where we get back to what you said, the rule of law. Let's say that the contractors have a really good Integris board right now, but maybe their guy is term limited. Maybe he's going to be gone in 2 years, and some guy gets in there that does not have the same values and ethics. I mean, if Barrow Peacock was on every board, I think we'd have a lot more assurance that we wouldn't have some of the abuses that we have. He's not. So the rule
On the
of law
other hand,
means,
if I was on, no, okay.
Listen, I don't want to belabor
Martini,
the point.
we have a
because
little bit of a history in this hearing.
We have a
so-
long agenda. I don't want to belabor the point.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank you.
finished with my comments.
Senator Lau, thank you.
Let's
for your
do
comments.
this. Senator Cortez has some questions, and we're going to hear from the other two witnesses that have signed up to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And some of these points I was going to make last week when we had the witness here, because I'm going to start with the premise that I think you're aware that I have
Thank you, Brett.
a bill that that is going through the process that said no board can enter into a consent decree that includes a non-disparagement clause, which suggests that everybody ought to have the right to come before a legislative committee and tell the truth. Would you not agree with that?
Absolutely. I voted for your bill. And I think I actually congratulated you on the floor of the Senate. You probably remember that.
I do.
I
Do you
can't,
also
in so many
believe-
words, I told you I'd vote for it twice if I could, but the law doesn't allow me to do that.
We can change that.
Well, no.
We,
You're
do
working
you,
this committee pretty good now.
do you also
I think
believe that people should not have the right to come make false or misleading statements in these committees?
I think people
Think that
should.
people should have, let me ask it in the other way.
Okay.
Do you think they should have the right to come and make false or misleading statements in our committees?
I think people should try to tell the truth to the best of their ability. I don't know if that answers your question.
So you're saying they should tell the truth?
To the best of their ability, yes.
But you believe that on an opinion of public policy, it's acceptable to give your opinion?
Yes.
So you should be able to say, I don't like this public policy, or I do like this public policy. But when it comes to factual evidence, you shouldn't say innuendos and things like that. So I'm doing this because I have a reason. Last week, somebody came to the table who actually was the reason why the bill that I passed came out of the Senate came about. And all I heard, and I didn't get a chance to ask any questions, and I was going to, but we had to leave. But there were nothing but statements like, these people are crooks, and these people are this, and they're bad, and they're this. But there wasn't one fact that was stated. And so I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay, well, and I want to respond to that.
But no, I don't want you to respond to. That's a statement I'm making. I'm going to ask you a question now.
Okay.
You said earlier, these people were shook down. These licensees were shook down.
Yes.
Okay, tell me the factual licenses that were shook down. I want to know which ones were shook down.
Well,
Because they would have had to been convicted. They would have had to been convicted of shaking down. That's, I guess shaking down is not a legal term, but it sounds to me like it's extortion. And that's a criminal activity. So if somebody was convicted of a criminal activity and was shaking people down, I want to know that name, because I want to know who it was that was on our commission that is now in jail. Because shaking down people is illegal. To say someone's shaking someone down and they're not being convicted is basically a disparaging remark against that person. And it's calling them out for something that they aren't convicted of. You just said you believe in innocence until proven guilty.
actually, you didn't ask me that question.
Do you believe in innocence until proven guilty?
I do.
That's what this bill's all
but,
about.
okay.
That's what this bill's all about.
So-
Yet you're okay. Hold on, I'm not finished. I'll let you know when it's time for you to answer. You are okay with innocent until proven guilty, except for when you can call people out for guilty at the table that aren't really guilty. Now, Senator Milkovich, I think you're very passionate about this, but I am too, and I'm passionate about when people come to the table that they be honest and truthful. And I don't even know who this person, you keep saying her or she. I don't know who she is. But I did print out, you gave a couple of hints, and I'm trying to read between the lines. You said she makes over $200,000. Is it a he or a she that makes over $200,000 with the Board of Medical Examiners?
Well, wait a minute. I'm a little bit confused now, Senator Cortez. You told me that I had to be really careful about making accusations. So you're asking me to state someone's name publicly when I avoided doing that? Is that what you want me to do?
No, you didn't hear the question. I said,
Well, I think you want me to name names? Is that what you're asking me to do?
No.
So I hear you on one hand.
No. Wait,
Senator
quit asking me the
Cortez.
questions. Let me ask you the
Okay,
questions.
no, I'm responding to your question, which I have a right to do as a member of the Senate.
Yes, you do.
You asked me a question, and I will answer it.
Hang
Okay,
on.
I'm gonna ask it to
Hang
you.
on. Ask your question.
Well, he asked about 4 and made multiple comments. I'm happy to respond, Senator Cortez. You tell me when you're finished, and I will respond.
Okay. Earlier in your comments, you said the person who was the investigator was removed and given another job as education,
That's the information that we were given.
and they make over $200,000.
That's the information we were given.
I'm going to ask you, is that a he or a she? I'm not asking you to state names.
Well, I'm a little bit confused by this because, okay, don't interrupt me, please, Senator Cortez.
Well, answer my question. Is that a he or
I'm-
a she? It's not asking for a statement. It's
I'm
asking for a
going to
simple he
answer
or
the
she.
question the way I deem to answer it as
Let
a
me
member of
stop
the
you and
Louisiana
I'm
Senate,
not gonna answer that
Senator
question.
Cortez,
Since-
because you sat there and lectured me about making unfounded accusations,
So
and
I'm
then
gonna
you're
tell you that-
demanding that I name someone in a public
I'm not
hearing.
asking you to name. I said,
so
is it he
that
or
is
she?
incongruous. Are you wanting? Is it your position that we should not
No,
name
I
names
don't-
until they're convicted?
I don't
Or
want
is
you to
it
answer
there-
that
or are
question.
you-
Forget about the question.
There's a
Let-
little.
let me ex-
There's a patent inconsistency.
Hold on. Point of order. Senator Price.
Thank you. I think we've gotten into a back and forth argument here, Mr. Chairman, and we're here to take some testimony and move forward. And I don't know how this is going, but I'd rather not get into arguments. We need decorum in the Senate chamber, in this room.
Well,
And
I hate to tell you that's not a valid point of order, but I agree wholeheartedly with it.
well, with respect to both gentlemen here, I see where this is going. I'm just asking that we tone it down, get back to some decorum, and let's take testimony and move forward.
Thank you, Senator Price.
If you want me to respond further, Senator Cortez, I'm willing to do it.
Of course you can. Hold on.
But I'd
Senator
like to do it with
Cortez.
my mic on. Senator Milkovich, I want to apologize. I wasn't putting you on trial here. My whole point was that last week, somebody came to the table and started making disparaging remarks about a lot of people that are on boards and commissions, many of which serve on these boards and commissions for a per diem. And they're professionals, and they try to do the best job they can. And I was embarrassed by the fact that this is the same person who went through a very difficult time in his life, and Senator Martini and Senator Mills wrote a letter to the Board of Dentistry and said, you have a non-disparagement clause in his consent decree that keeps him from being able to come and say things that he believes are true to our committee. So I filed a bill that said we shouldn't do that as a public policy. We shouldn't come to the table and not be able to say the truth. But we should also not be able to come to the table and say disparaging remarks without factual basis behind them. That was my whole intention, and I apologize if I offended you, because I certainly didn't mean to offend you. What I was getting at, and this is all my point, and I'll let you answer with whatever you need to say afterwards. Again, I want to apologize. I wasn't trying to get after you. My point was this: there is somebody, and I don't know who she is or he is, that is being cast into this very bad place, and that person, I don't even know who they are, and I'm not asking you to say who they are. I'm trying to figure out. I ran the list of salaries at the Board of Medical Examiners, and there's only 2 people that make over $200,000. Best I can see, they're both men, and I can't figure out for the life of me. And one is an investigator, director of investigations. Maybe that's the person that was moved, but maybe this has not been updated. I don't know. It's on our own website, so it should be as up to date as possible. And I've had problems with the boards in the past, just like you have. I had problems with the Board of Medical Examiners many years ago, and I don't totally disagree with your premise behind your bill, like everybody else. My point is that I just don't want people to come up in here and use the words "good old boy cronyism" and and just paint everybody with a broad brush, because I look out there and see many people that serve on boards and commissions that are not cronies and are not good old boys. They're good people. And if the good old boys is a positive thing, that's what they are good old ladies. But they're not doing it because somehow or another there's a graft and corruption going on, that they're getting something under the table. They're doing it because it's their field. I have a doctor from my area who is he's probably could be retired. He still does his practice, and he still comes to the Board of Medical Examiner meetings. I think he might just have been moved off of the board, but he did it for years, and he did it out of the kindness of his heart and because he loved his practice. And so that's the thing that to me makes Louisiana seem bad, because we paint everybody with this broad brush. And I apologize again for the third time, Senator Milkovich. I know your heart's in the right place. I think a lot of people in here's heart's in the right place, and I just don't want them to be painted with the broad brush. And again, I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Senator Price, thank you for
Thank you,
intervening.
Senator
We should
Cortez.
get you a referee jacket. It was getting a little
Respond.
heated. And thank you. You can respond as much as you want. Thank you so much.
Thank you. May I respond, Mr. Chairman?
You can respond as much as you want within reason. Go ahead. I mean, I'm serious.
Number one.
We're going to move this along.
You're saying that the person that came here last week didn't give facts. That person has given the facts over and over again in legal proceedings and in proceedings before this body. I will agree with you that he was nervous last week, and if I would have had time to prepare him, I would have said, don't use general conclusory allegations, state facts. But it's Dr. Haygood is who you're talking about. I think Dr. Haygood's very familiar with the facts of his case, Senator Cortez. He's lived the facts of his case. Dr. Haygood was taken out, he believes, by a competitor who was on the board. Dr. Haygood had a very good dental practice. One of his patients is on this Senate committee who commends his abilities as a dentist. Dr. Haygood has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees fighting what he believes is corruption. And if he has lived this hardship, and if he has been treated unfairly, and he has walked through this corruption, he has every right as a Louisiana citizen, whether politicians want to hear it, whether bureaucrats want to hear it, whether special interests want to hear it, he has a right to tell his story. He's a Louisiana citizen. This building belongs in part to him. This process belongs in part to him, and he's entitled to justice. The next point, you said
Let me jump in real quick. Are you suggesting that Ryan Haygood hasn't had the opportunity to voice his problems to this?
Okay, can I answer him before I finish answering you?
And just
don't-
to
don't-
add
don't-
to
And you said that he made disparaging remarks
Well,
without
here's
factual
what he
basis.
said. I want you to speak to what I was concerned
Well,
about.
and-
He said that Dr. Smith sent a letter to Senator Martini that was filled with lies. I think everybody in the committee received a copy of that letter, and I was going to ask him specifically what in that letter was lies. That's my point. That was what I was trying to get to, but I didn't get a chance.
And I don't think that's his fault, and it's not my fault.
But I didn't see any lies in there, and that was what I wanted him to be pointed
Well,
out to me.
because he did not have an opportunity in that hearing.
Granted, it was-
because
it was shortened.
because we had another hearing, we had to go to the floor. So that is not a function of the fact that Dr. Haygood is not able to defend his position. We ran out of time. With respect to your statement that he made disparaging remarks without factual basis, are you accusing him of making disparaging remarks without a factual basis? Are you saying that Dr. Haygood did that?
I'm saying that when he said Dr. Smith wrote in his letter a bunch of lies, Dr. Smith's from my district, okay? And I know him very well, and I wanted to go back and look at the letter and say what in here is a lie, and with all due respect, he didn't get a chance to expound on it, and I didn't get a chance to ask him that question. So the
happy
clock
for you
ran
to
out.
question him.
I would like to visit with him on it.
And I would love to question Dr. Smith. I'd love that opportunity. And
Can
if
we
if
get
you
back
have
on the
another-
bill?
Yeah, and I apologize.
By
for
the
getting
way,
off the bill.
you're saying, as far as the corruption of the dental and medical boards, you may not know about it, and you may not be as knowledgeable as some other people. Tom Aswell has been writing about it for years. He's documented the corruption. He's documented the fact that investigators have busted people wrongly, and he has addressed it. And with respect to the issue of whether there's wrongdoing, we know that several pain care doctors in South Louisiana were taken out when there was a prominent pain doctor on the medical board. And guess who took care of the pain care population? The medical board member, the guy who was on the medical board when his competitors were taken out of business.
All right.
That is not made up.
Thank you.
And the fact that
Senator, look, we're going to discuss your bill, okay? We're not going to relitigate Ryan Haygood's thing or Tom Aswell, who, by the way,
I was asked
has
about it,
written
so
a
I
couple-
responded.
He's
And
written a couple.
I-
He's not always right either. You know, I've taken him to task on that too. But so just because he said it doesn't matter, that doesn't have anything to do with the bill. There are two other people that want to speak on the bill. That is Vincencio Madrigal, MD, and Dr. Eric Savanka. Is he in the audience? Come to the table.
And I think Dr. Bruni wants to talk. Did you?
Oh, is it? Is Dr. Savanka the individual that testified last week?
Yeah.
Huh?
He is. You told him that he
Okay,
was
good.
testifying.
Well, and then Dr. I don't have a card for anybody else. But we will hear from Dr. Madrigal. That's it. Dr. Savanka, we thank you for your testimony last week.
I'm here to finish it up, Senator.
No, that was, well, how about no?
What do you mean, no? You told me I could come back and...
No, I didn't tell you that. I told you,
Yes, you did. I believe you did.
well, okay, well, let's have a hearing on that.
Senator,
I mean, this is getting totally out of hand.
Senator, I have-
Okay? I said, I let you and Ryan Haygood testify last week because you couldn't come back this week.
No, I had 5 minutes, Senator, and you told me I'd come back next week and I could finish. I had 5 minutes.
Okay, let's go. Vince Madrigal.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have written this down. As I understand that my time is limited, and I did not want to forget the facts that support Bill 187 by Senator Milkovich. The bill strives to provide the professional and other skilled members with a just and transparent process, not one where false accusations were leveled against professionals, they were extorted exorbitant fees, rigged administrative processes, engaged in patent conflicts of interest, and drove many to file for bankruptcy. I am but the truest example of the absurd, atrocious, and yes, nearly criminal way the boards conduct their business. In this nation, a nation of laws, one I fought and nearly died for, defending the flag and our Constitution, my constitutional rights were denied by the Louisiana State Board of Medical Examiners. The then DOI Director of Investigations clearly told me she could recommend a lawyer that would see my problem and get it resolved. She was referring to her boyfriend, yet both were married to other partners at that time. And I knew who he was when she mentioned his name. He's an attorney I could not afford. Her second in command was sent to tell me not to bother with my quest. I was never going to get my license back. That was all the due process I was entitled to, according to them. My hearing was no more than a kangaroo court. My witnesses were not allowed to testify. And the board and the judge, paid by them, heard the DOI side, the Director of Investigation side, even before I entered the room. To the point that one member of the board, before I concluded my testimony, told me, was I not ashamed of what I had done? By the way, at that moment, I still did not know what the charges were against me, and to this day, I do not know who my accuser was. I think I should mention at this point that I was appointed by the President of the United States to a post within the Department of Defense that required full vetting by the FBI and a Senate vote to consent. Since I was appointed twice, I passed that process twice. Now, the board claimed that I had been duly notified, yet I was unaware of their notification and proved to them that I was never informed. Hence, I had not lied. The address they had on file was one where I had not gone for at least 24 months prior to the date they claim I had been notified. I have worked very hard all of my life to obtain what I have. The manipulative decision of the board placed me in bankruptcy. I lost my house. I just about lost all I had. I'm here today fully hoping that the representatives of the people will ensure that these atrocities are never accepted again. In closing, I want to thank you for allowing me to convey my side of the story. This has been an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
And I'm
Madrigal.
open to questions if anybody
Is there a
wants to
question for
question
him?
me.
Senator Mizell for a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you practice, Dr. Madrigal?
In Jefferson Parish. I was a member of the staff at East Jefferson General Hospital.
So I'm trying to put myself in your heart. That's terrible set of circumstances. When you were brought to the board, was your concern in finding out what the charges were? And I would, if I were in your place, my assumption would be someone's lied. Someone's filed a false accusation. So is your concern to fix the accusation or to confront the accuser?
Ma'am, at this point, it doesn't really matter who the accuser is
Exactly.
because I have already been denied all of my rights.
Right. So to
So
fix
the
the
process
situation,
may establish and make the point of ensuring that the rule of law is followed, not invented by the group who is in charge at that time.
And what's the status now? What's your status?
To be brutally honest, I'm on my way this afternoon to meet with the Director of Investigations of the Louisiana State Board of Medical Examiners. I do not know what my potential status would be at the end of that meeting. I can tell you, however, that I am looking at better suited people than I have in the last 10 years.
What is just better suited people? Is that what you
Yes.
said?
Well, I am actually being able to see people who are willing to see the fair side as opposed to just trying to, pull my hair and make sure they draw blood.
I've never heard that expression before.
You heard it now.
Yeah, I appreciate it because I think we all, no matter what side of the table we're sitting at, we all want justice. We all
Indeed.
want the best for Louisiana. I personally want the most qualified people that we can have practicing whatever profession they can practice in the state of Louisiana. But sometimes the ends to that don't look the same depending on your perspective. I just wondered from your perspective, because you've lived the nightmare, your concern is fixing the wrong, not so much. Some people like a confrontation, and we can see that in lots of different ways. So the confrontation may not bring about the end, but to resolve the problem is what we all want. So I thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. sir.
May I
Of course.
ma'am, when my practice was terminated, I had 7,500 active records. That tells you I was no slouch, and people very much appreciated the care that I provided them with. Number one. Number two, you said that we are looking for a fair ending. We're looking for justice. And that is the only reason I come up here today. I did not need to be here today. But I figured that if I can provide a bit of input and hopefully make a point that the rest of you can see and potentially help pass either an amended version or this bill, I would be very much I would feel my life was productive.
Dr. Madrigal, and I guess I have to confess, he and I have been friends for a long, long time. He's very solid citizen from South Louisiana, and I appreciate all your efforts. You were the subject of a complaint before the medical board, is that right?
Sir, at this point, I have no idea.
Well, what I'm saying is something happened where they took away your license, is that
Well,
right?
actually, because of a complaint,
Uh-huh,
somebody who I don't know,
okay.
I don't know what the complaint was, nor who the person was.
How long ago did this happen?
This was, I think it's about 2010.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And you,
And I
you-
have been trying ever
and,
since.
And you didn't appeal it? You didn't appeal it through the courts or anything?
Well, at that time, there was no ability to go to court. And it would have, I was already nearly darn broke. In fact, that's why I had to file for bankruptcy protection.
Okay. And you didn't, and no lawyer told you, somebody told you that all you had to just live with that? Is that it?
Well, no, but I would
I mean,
have to,
let me ask you this, and I'm not trying, did you ever inquire as to whether you had any appellate rights to that decision?
I did.
Okay.
And I had to get a lawyer.
Okay. And you pursued it?
Lawyers are pretty expensive, sir.
Not all lawyers, you know?
Well,
No, you're right. I understand there, you know, but I mean, basically they taken away your livelihood.
the boyfriend of the DOIs at that time was supposed to take my case, but wanted a $50,000 upfront payment
Okay.
to draw from.
So you chose. I'm not trying to cast fault. I'm just saying, but you did have the opportunity, if you wanted to pursue it, and you, for financial reasons, you could
I
not.
could have, I guess, yeah.
I got you. Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
I think we maybe ask Dr. Zawaka to finish his testimony.
Well, I think I'm not. I think he testified last week. I think the whole idea of letting him testify last week was that he wasn't coming back.
No, that was Dr. Haygood.
Well, you
He told me I could.
Oh, Dr. Haygood told you could?
No, you told
Okay.
him. he
Well,
could
good.
come
Chairman,
back.
this is my recollection, that you said he could complete his testimony today. That's my recollection.
Okay, I understand. Proceed.
My name is
So is Dr. Zawaka going to be allowed to complete
I haven't
his testimony?
decided.
What's that?
I have not yet decided. You know, I'm trying to speed this thing up. I'm trying to afford you every courtesy. The whole idea of him testifying last week was that we were going to get these two witnesses who were not going to be able to testify, and I don't need you to respond. Okay. So
try to
I'm
be
going to
brief.
conduct this hearing as fair as I can. We can't stay here till 3:00. All right. So I'm going to let these two individuals, this individual testify, and then we're gonna see what the committee wants to do.
My name is Dr. Andre Bruni. I'm a general dentist, father of 5, and a child of the Most High. I practice with my wife here in Baton Rouge. I began practicing in 2001 in a small four-chair office right out of dental school. I worked extremely hard and focused on providing my patients with outstanding care in a relaxed and comfortable environment. And I taught this philosophy to other doctors along the way. By 2012, I'd grown my dental practice to 14 offices, including 30 doctors and over 200 employees in 4 states. With a passion to provide better access to care, I was the first dentist in the country to ever be invited into Walmart stores to provide full-service dentistry. In 2012, I was found guilty of advertising violations by the Louisiana State Board of Dentistry, which that year had decided arbitrarily to create a Yellow Page committee, and they fined dentists arbitrarily for words like having state-of-the-art or in my case, I had family dentistry. It had to be the most prominent ad in the thing. It was clearly bigger, but it wasn't bigger enough. So they multiplied that times 6 or 7 Yellow Page books, and I was fined $15,000 at that time. I really didn't have any way to appeal it. Soon after, I became the target of another investigation that was leaked out to the dental community a year prior to being officially notified by the board. This loomed like a black cloud over me because the sources were credible and I knew it was coming, but over what? I believe the dental board waited a year to gather more information from other offices and doctors within our organization so they could compound and find levies against me. 2 of the charges against me were actually against other associate doctors. The two doctors, we were all called for a meeting and were summoned in for an informal meeting with attorneys present. The two associate doctors went in for questioning and both left with letters of reprimand. I, as the owner doctor, was the last to go in and met by a supposedly impartial three-dentist panel. I can tell you this wasn't a hearing, it was an execution. I felt like questions that were being asked, the theatrics, it wasn't really sort of like a checklist of things. They ended up finding me $70,000.
What year was this?
This is in 2013.
Okay.
And so, but the whole crux of the matter is that I was asked to come in for a hearing. The hearing was already pre-decided. I'm talking to one of the dentists that had driven in from a committee panel meeting, and he had already heard what they wanted to do to me before the hearing was even over. It's like, I heard what they wanted to do to you. I thought it was over the top.
There was also the problem with that board in that the attorney who was prosecuting was also advising the board on, and yeah, look, I get you. You know, and hopefully the bill we passed last year and with Senator Cortez's legislation.
So to get to it is that, you know, I think the bill that Senator Milkovich is proposing has dumbed down a lot to create a pathway. As a dentist, I had no pathway out. Right? It was either take this option or go before the formal 12-member panel, which were all related.
And in the situation that I was getting, I heard it in 4 different occasions. The investigator would come. First, you didn't get notified. Then 6 months down the road, they came and they told you, we've got enough here to suspend your license for 6 months, but we've got these investigative fees of $50,000. If you pay them, we'll give you a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
My argument was, no, if he's a bad dentist, suspend him. You know. And hopefully what I did and what Senator Milkovich did solved that problem, at least as it pertains to the dentistry.
It does create a pathway. But it does sunset in 2 years. And so my position, and I think even the dental board agrees that they're okay with having this ALJ process. I think what y'all were discussing, the part about protecting the anonymous whistleblower, but in the past, like Diana Chenevert, who testified here last year, said that own board members would call in complaints against their competitors. And so how do you know, if it's a complaint that's by somebody within that's trying to, you know, retaliate against a competitor, how do you deal with that? So I agree with Senator Milkovich. I mean, maybe there's some concessions on protecting the whistleblower, but we also need to know that it's not happening from within also.
And there are a lot of people affiliated with other boards and commissions that are opposed to this because they have not experienced the same problem that you have. And I think that's what the duty of this board is that when something like that pops up and it's pointed out to us that we deal with it, but we deal with it probably on an individual basis, still protecting the due process rights, but in the same way, not mandating that every board and commission in the state has to go by the ALJ process. But thank you for your testimony. And Dr. Zeig, I will allow you to testify for 5 minutes. Oh, wait, are those people out there real quick? Yeah, hold on. While you're getting ready, there's a class from Keogh, France in Metairie that is coming up here, so Mr. Patterson's going to bring him in. Bring him in, Dickie. We did? Okay. I thought I said, is there any objection? Okay. While we're waiting for them to come in, I'll make a motion to adopt the amendment to Senator Milkovich's bill. Any objection? That amendment's adopted. Bring them in here. They can come up front. On television. That's right. I went to 4th grade there for 4 years. Is everybody in? Hello, how are you? Sure, good to see you. Yes. Wait, hold on. How do I do that? Do I just add them?
Yeah, if you.
I just. Is it going on? They're on the big screen. All right. We have a group here from Keogh, France in Metairie, which is in my Senate district. It's the 5th grade class. Their teachers are Miss Heidi Rose and Miss Martha Scott, and the upper school principal is Miss Sarah Block. So we're so excited that y'all could come up here and watch us make sausage up here. But just don't stare at us too long. So, but we're really glad y'all came up here, and we hope you have a great day here at the Capitol. I know that they've got some plans for y'all to tour the Capitol, and if you want, you can go downstairs and tell the people that Senator Martini said to give y'all some ice cream. So, all right. That's just the students from Keogh, France now. So, thank y'all so much for coming. We're glad to see y'all. Thank you. Anytime, Dick. Take care. You're very welcome. Wow. Are you Dickie's son? All right. Good to see you. Something weird.
And Mr. Chairman, I think there's Dr. Allen is here, and I think he's filled out a green card to testify.
Okay. Dr. Zelenka, I apologize for any misunderstanding. I did say you could come back. I don't know if I told you can come back and testify, but that's fine. You have 5 minutes.
That's very kind of you, Senator. Thank you. Like I said last week, I am Eric Cerwonka. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I have a license in New York and in Louisiana. In 2015, I was notified by the board that there was some charges that were made against me by somebody that was trying to sue me. I went to the board for the Bertucci hearing, and they grabbed my license. They asked me if I would agree to a consent decree. I said no. They said, wait here. They went in the other office. They came back. A woman that had been hired by the board a week before gave me a letter saying, we have your license. Your license is gone. That was not done by the board. That was done by the employees of the board. Now, did I mention that they broke into my house, Senators? No? Well, they have a private detective that works for them, and they pay him, of course. The complaining...
What board is this?
The psychology board, sir.
Louisiana Psychology Board. Very good. Thank you.
They hire a private detective that works for them. The complaining witness, basically, of my lawsuit, he interviewed her, and she said, well, you know, I know a disgruntled girlfriend. You should talk to her. He met with this past girlfriend at a library, didn't ask her for ID. She said, I can get the key to his house if you want. I can still go over there on occasion. After that, she went into my house 2 times. She made some evidence. She put things on my computer. She took pictures. They were...
Hold on. Point of order.
I just want the witness. What you're saying is under oath.
Yes, that's right, sir.
And if you disparage someone, they can...
That's right, sir.
File suit against you for that.
I'm certainly aware of that,
I
sir.
just want you to be aware of what you're saying.
Is this what you...
2 years, Senator.
As I recall, this is what you were testifying to last week.
But I started to, sir.
Well,
now,
so,
the
well,
secret
if you-
evidence, if I can get back to it.
Okay.
The secret evidence. These photographs that she took, they turned up as the evidence at my so-called hearing. But I couldn't, they didn't have to tell me who took them or where they got them from. That was secret, they said. So this was their evidence, though. She broke in one time and apparently didn't get enough of what he wanted because he sent her back a second time that I know of. 2 times she came into my house. All of these pictures ended up in the hands of the prosecutor.
They depict what? They purport to depict
Well, these are basically she put bags of flour together. This is a good one here. They're baggies full of white powder. Now, if it was illegal drugs, of course, they could have just called the police. but they didn't. They took these pictures. I came home from working at the hospital. The house was in order. This is a mortar and pestle I use to chop up pecans when I make, what's that? Bananas Foster. Well, if you notice here, she took the kitchen knife. She took a razor knife out of my garage. She put it all together for a nice little thing. Don't all psychologists have a mortar and pestle and drug sniffing equipment in their house? If you notice, it's right here in plain sight in my living room. She took pictures of all kinds of things, liquor bottles, books. I have an organic chemistry book that she took out and photographed. But the best one was, I had some bags of kratom, which is not illegal. Every war has its own signature injury, and the Gulf War, they have a fibromyalgia.
You have
And
2
a lot
minutes
of
left.
This
All
is
right.
kratom, and this is why I had this. It's not illegal, though. So as you can see, this was just a star chamber. I wasn't allowed to provide witnesses, and so it was overturned in court. Well, then they're always short of money, of course. Then they appealed it to the appellate court. I had to put my lawyer up to the appellate court and then the Supreme Court. Now, the initial judge overturned it on 12 different things. I don't know why, but the woman that represented the board went to the appellate court and said it was only 2 things. Now, the judge in the place, in the case, well, he was the board lawyer. His picture's on the internet. The other board lawyer, she sat there with the 5 psychologists that were so-called the jury.
You have 1 minute left.
Okay. Now, afterwards, they charged me again. I have new charges from the psychology board. The charges include coming late to therapy. The charges include talk too much during therapy. Now, these are lawyers. They know nothing about therapy. They wouldn't know therapy if they tripped over it. This is an out-of-control bunch. There is nothing, no one to complain to, no supervision whatsoever. They feel like they are the law. And I could do nothing. I got $141,000 in it 6 months ago. And I don't have unlimited funds. They grabbed my license at that time because they wanted to make sure that I could not contest it. I could not
Begin
make
to wrap
money.
up. You go ahead. Do your conclusion.
I had a very healthy practice. I still have a very healthy practice. I was trained to see patients that are seriously mentally ill. I take the worst cases, people that have been sick for 30, 40 years, and they get better. I trained in New York. I went to prestigious places, University of Long Island. I went to Columbia University. I'm very good at what I do.
Fine.
They did not want me
Thank
to
you.
do.
Thank you for your testimony.
You bet. Thank you,
Okay.
Senator.
All right. The board is clear.
Senator, excuse me, I think Dr. Allen is here. I thought did he not fill out a green card?
Dr. Allen.
Better.
Thank you, Dr. Zawanka. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Okay, we're going to hear from we only have 1 card in opposition. She does not wish to speak. We're from a Kelly Williams, Louisiana Psychological Association, and opposed, does not wish to speak. All right. What's this? You,
Dr. Allen's making his way to the witness table.
okay. Is that Paige Allen or Melvin Allen?
And I will note, I think there's some people that filed white cards. The director of the Division of Administrative Law.
What's from?
Would you like a chair, sir? Okay, sir. And also, I think Dr. Hickam, fill out a white card, would like to testify.
They're here for information only. I mean, if somebody from the committee wants to hear from them, more than welcome. I'll read the cards. Dr. Allen?
Speaking.
Yeah, you want to pull that mic a little bit closer to you?
Yes, sir, Melvin Allen.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm here this morning because I listened to you, to the other gentleman talking and stuff like that. I've written down a couple of questions, or not questions, but some items that happened to me in my practice,
Okay.
which I am retired from.
Okay.
And I may have to let my wife talk to read because she and I was in it. We've been in this together for 52 years, and we're not going to change anymore.
Okay.
But my speech is gone because of my dadgum Parkinson's, which.
No. If she wants to make the point, that's fine. Thank you.
Yes, sir. It's just ironic that my Parkinson's happened right after this accusations happened in my office. So,
Okay. Why don't you tell us about it?
Okay. I think some of the points that were mentioned, I'd like to reiterate that we experienced the same thing. He had been in practice, and his health was good, and mine was so-so. But when the board filed charges and had us to come down there, they had us come down to an informal hearing, but he was sworn in and they had a stenographer there.
Which board is that?
Oh, sorry, the Louisiana State Board of Dentistry.
Of Dentistry.
He was a dentist.
Okay.
Okay, so we went to that meeting, and we could tell right away that we were in trouble because it was supposed to be informal, but it was opposite of that. And the lawyer for the board, Mr. Begay, was very adamant, and very, I'm not sure I can grasp the words, but one of the things he said, there had been a civil suit before the board contacted us, and in that suit, he was found not guilty. It was really, it was wishy-washy, and the testimony she gave was really interesting.
This was a hearing before the board?
No, a hearing, I'm sorry, I know I'm not making sense. It was a hearing before it was a civil suit.
Oh, somebody had
And
sued
she
him,
had filed
like
against
malpractice
him.
or something?
He hadn't seen her for over a year,
I got
and
you.
she filed that it was a misdemeanor charge that he had fondled her chest.
Well, so the case involved a criminal allegation that he had fondled this lady without her consent. Okay. And that was resolved in his favor.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. But then the state board picked up where the civil one left off.
Okay.
And we had a lot of trouble, tried to hire a lawyer that turned out after 2 weeks, he said he couldn't represent us because he was already representing Mr. Begay as a defendant in another suit filed against him. So we got a second lawyer.
And what year was this in? Do you know?
It was 2012 was when the civil matter was settled, and it was about 2013, the end of it, before the board got involved. But they made it very clear that meeting, that informal meeting, that it was kind of cut and dried. He had done these things.
Mm-hmm.
And over a year's time, there was a lot of expenses. It affected his health terribly, and I was walking before all this started, but stress will affect MS. And, okay, where was I?
Miss Allen, let me just say this, and I'm not trying to cut you off, but that's the exact same problem that I was made aware of, maybe back in 2012, which began my efforts to hopefully straighten out the dentistry board. And I understand that I think we have done that, and we've at least gotten past that. So.
Oh, okay. Well, if that's fine, because
I mean,
the only
again,
reason we made the effort to come was because
No, and we appreciate the fact that you did come down here and give us that. But what this bill does is this bill now tries to extend what we did with the Board of Dentistry and the Board of Auctioneers to every board. And the question is not whether or not we want fairness to happen. The question is whether we can afford to do it the way Senator Milkovich wants to do it. So anyway, but you can go ahead and conclude, or if I interrupted you, I apologize.
the only thing I was going to add to that was that they did go out and solicit witnesses. the witnesses turned out to be very poor. I mean, the things they said were ludicrous.
Well, and I think if you go back and look at the records of this committee, whenever I referred to that regime that they had over there, I called it two friends and a stranger. You were just there, and they had already made up their mind.
Yes.
And I know with Mr. Hickam, we've worked very
Hey,
hard with Mr. Hickam and the new board members, and hopefully we have at least somewhat straightened that out.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Fine. Thank you.
Needless to say, when it was over with, we tried to put it out of our minds because it was a really bad experience. But in the end, it turned out that they could not, we refused to sign, we were in this together. He refused to sign this consent decree because they wanted him to admit guilt to something they couldn't prove, and they wanted him to sign the, whatever y'all called it, where he couldn't talk about them.
And What about money? Was there any money involved too?
No, because he, after his health was going, you don't walk up to a patient shaking, so he had to retire.
No, I meant, did they fine him?
Well, no, they couldn't, because when he didn't renew his license, they
They didn't have it. Okay.
Well, I
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
the effort of coming down here, and good luck with your.
Hope that what happened to me and whatever doesn't happen to another dentist, because, I had a good, fine, active practice.
I'm with you on that. Trust me.
Thank
So,
you guys for hearing us out.
all
Appreciate
right,
it.
thank you so much. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Say something, please?
Sure.
You want to sit here, too?
No, I can stay on.
Okay.
Did everybody hear me okay?
I think we need you to talk into the mic.
Over here, as soon as.
Try not to run over anybody.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Paige Allen. I'm a paramedic and the child of these two doctors. I don't know what happened to me, but I became a very good paramedic due to their strong work ethic. To see what the dental board has done to not only my family, but to other entities, it's a tragedy. My daddy hunted with me up until 2012, and even after he retired, they continued to harass him and send out statements and interrogatories, of which at a retirement age, who wants to untail $50,000 almost? And a charade, and the first question that was made to my father in this quote-unquote informal hearing was, what, would a small-town judicial system, did you have the judge in your back pocket, or did your attorney have the judge in the back pocket? That's inappropriate. That's not an informal hearing. That is total slander. Thank you for taking the time to hear my parents. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Y'all have a great day.
Good luck.
Got it, Chief?
All right. All right. We have cards for, I announced that one card in opposition. We have white cards from Amy Groves Lowe of the Louisiana State Board of Examiners of Psychologists, Evan Bergeron, Louisiana State Board of Social Work Examiners, Rusty Hickam, Louisiana Board of Dentistry, Bruce Unanks, Real Estate Commission, Emily Boyce, Division of Administrative Law, Jim Harris, Louisiana Realtors and Society of CPAs, Michael McDuff, Louisiana Licensing Board for Contractors, Burgess McCraney, Louisiana Motor Vehicle Commission, Kevin Landreneau, Licensing Board for Contractors, V.A. Collada Jr., M.D., Louisiana State Board of Medical Examiners, Kim Sport, Louisiana State Board of Medical Examiners, Rhonda Bowe, Executive Director, Louisiana Behavior Analyst Board, Jamie Morick, Executive Director, Louisiana Board of Examiners of Psychotherapists, John Becknell, Louisiana Board of Drug and Device Distributors, Aaron Connell, Louisiana Board of Dentistry, Jennifer Wright, Louisiana State Board of Nursing, Dr. Philip Page, Louisiana Physical Therapy Board, Courtney Newsom, Louisiana LPTC, whatever board, and Lynn Ansardi, Louisiana State Board of Practical Nurse Examiners. That's it. The board is clear. You want to close?
Sure. Justice and due process. None of us in this room, no one in this room would want to lose their livelihood.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, the white cards we do for information only, but I mean, if somebody from the, who are you with?
The psychology board.
Okay. Does anybody on the committee have any questions for the psychology board?
She wanted to testify as information purposes.
Information purposes.
She wants to speak.
Okay, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I promise to be brief.
That's okay.
And I'm happy to answer any questions. My law firm has represented the Board of Psychology for 35 years. Amy Groves Lowe. I'm with Taylor Porter, and we've represented the Board of Psychology for 35 years. In that time period, we have never had an appellate court reverse a decision of the board based on due process or any other grounds. And that is because this board has followed the law set forth in the Administrative Procedure Act and the case law that defines it, which is a well-worn path that provides all the due process at every stage to a licensee. We have clear law, we have black and white law, we have fair law, and we have judicial oversight and review that is included in the Administrative Procedure Act that ensures that licensees who have had their rights violated are able to come before a separate, neutral, impartial body and state their case and have the due process or any other issues reviewed. That process is taking place. Our board is doing that well. Checks and balances already exist within the Act. This bill, as amended, would eliminate the basic elements of the Administrative Procedure Act that are working effectively. First of all, the amendment to have the right to have an ALJ to hear the case, this would eliminate the whole purpose of having a professional board. The courts have said that it is important that state agencies and licensing boards have members of their own profession rule on issues of licensing and rule on issues of discipline because they are in the best position to understand their own profession. If we then have members of the ALJ doing these roles, they don't have that expertise. So cost, one of the issues that you mentioned, is going to be greatly affected because both sides, both the licensee and the boards, will have to hire additional experts to testify about what the standards are in their field, in their profession, so that the ALJ can fully understand before they rule on any issue. In addition to that, right now, our courts give deference to boards based on their professional opinion, based on their professional background and the information that they have. All of that case law would be gone with this bill. All of that would be eliminated. Secondly, the amendment to raise the standard of review to clear and convincing evidence. This is a standard we use in criminal proceedings, not in civil proceedings. This is a civil proceeding related to licensing, and it's too far. Third, the removal that there's been a lot of discussion about producing the entire file to the licensee. And Senator Peacock, you mentioned about the whistleblower concerns that you have. In addition to that, this would throw out any attorney-client privilege that the board has with their attorney because they would have to produce everything, every work product, every attorney-client privileged conversation, all of that would have to be produced. And this is in violation of existing law and privilege. The item in the amendment about having a counsel at all stages in the proceedings, does that include, as it did in the original bill, in every conversation that the executive director has with the investigator? Again, that involves privileged conversations with the board attorney. These are all issues that would completely eliminate existing law related to administrative proceedings. The right to discovery is already in Title 49 under 956. And I understand that this body wants to prevent a state agency from keeping individuals from working. I understand that. We don't want to have any state action that takes away an individual's right to work. But what the Administrative Procedure Act does is it balances the right of the individual to work with the important state duty and obligation to protect the health and welfare of all of its citizens, not just the licensees, all of its citizens, everyone who is going to a professional for help. And if we take away these essential elements of the Act, we will destroy that balance. We will have it totally tilted in one direction and not balanced, which is the purpose of checks and balances and the purpose of having oversight that is already provided for. I understand there may be some boards that have specific issues, but this Act, as amended, would affect all boards, All boards, including those who the courts have affirmed are operating with due process and applying the law as it's written. Our board has the same purpose your legislative body does, which is to protect all citizens, all of us. And we need to do that in a way that upholds existing law and doesn't degenerate it. I will state lastly that there was a complainant earlier who talked a lot about specifics about my board, about the psychology board today and last week. And I will remind this committee that the witnesses were ordered to tell the truth and tell the whole truth. And there were a lot of things that were left out, and I'll be really brief in addressing just a few. First of all, the complainant did not mention that there were numerous charges filed against him that, without getting into detail, pose significant harm to the public. It's all a matter of public record because a lawsuit has been filed in this case. It also was not accurately explained to this committee that at the administrative proceeding, that complainant was allowed to present witnesses. He had an attorney. He presented evidence. He presented all of his own witnesses. It was a full hearing. There was no due process violation through that hearing. And that complainant did file an appeal with the district court and with the First Circuit, both of whom said that the board did not violate any due process rights of that complainant. So just to be clear to this board, that is not an example of a board misapplying due process. This board has done them.
We're not here to make that decision. We're here to make the decision on whether or not we're going to apply the standard that he wants to those courts.
Absolutely,
Okay,
but this body should not be put in a position of trying to circumvent pending litigation. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to look at whether or not the Administrative Procedure Act already fairly balances the rights of the individual to employment and the state obligation through its boards to make sure that the health and welfare of its citizens is being protected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, hold on. Senator Long.
Yes.
Could you speak to just a minute the cost and who would bear
Yes.
it if this was enacted?
Absolutely. With regard to having an ALJ hear the case with the cost, both the licensee and the board would have to hire numerous expert witnesses to explain to the ALJ what the standard of practice is based on whatever the violation is, the ethical standards in place for their take psychology. We have ethical standards we have to abide by. We have professional rules they have to abide by. All of us as laypersons don't know that, and ALJ is not going to know that. It has to be the board does. Those board members that sit and hear the violations and hear all the evidence, they know what those standards are, but that would have to be taught to an ALJ. And so that's going to involve a great deal of expense to hire all those experts to come in to testify, pay those expenses, and it's going to make longer hearing process for the ALJ, for all people involved. It's not just the board.
So speak to the cost. Who would have to bear the cost of the board? The board?
Yes, the board has to bear the cost, which means the licensees.
And what's your source of revenue?
Our source of revenue solely is licensees. It is self-funded.
So you would have to.
We would have to increase dues for all of our licensees to pay for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The board is clear. Senator.
I submitted a white card as well. I'm Emily Boyce, the director of the Division of Administrative Law. Excuse me. No, don't want to take up your time, but just to address an issue as far as the expertise, my agency exists to provide administrative hearings for the state of Louisiana. So I just want to make sure, is my agency capable of providing the services anticipated? Can we hold hearings? We hold hearings all the time. What we are determining is...
There's no question of your competency. I think the question is the cost involved in applying this to all the boards.
Well, as far as, and to speak directly to the cost, now how boards are conducting these due process hearings now, as you pointed out, boards are conducting these due process hearings. They may be at the board, they may be, and so there are costs of doing those proceedings now. How that translates to them being done at my agency, I can't predict because I don't know how many of them are occurring. I don't know how many would remove to my agency, remove the hearings, but there's cost associated with those hearings now.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So speak to the concerns of the Board of Psychology. Do you have the expertise in the necessary fields, or would the experts have to be brought in to educate the judge in this case.
As far as it, and this would be true with any administrative hearing, if you want to bring charges and you have to explain why you have the right to bring those charges, we hear those kinds of things every day, and arguably, as she mentioned, there are board members that could serve to speak to things. As far as if they need to provide additional information to back up, but all of this should be in any due process record anyway, as far as what those standards are.
And what are the cost of your adjudication?
The cost of adjudicating within my agency, I operate under a statewide cost allocation plan. It's a formula that essentially I'm a service agency. We break even and we look at what hours we spend for providing administrative hearings to executive branch agencies. So our hourly rate can fluctuate depending on all the work that's done. So I could talk to you more specifically, but I don't have a specific number.
But my question is more specifically, who would bear that cost? Would it be the litigant? Would it be the board? The board would have additional costs if.
Well, right now, and I would have to look at the enabling legislation for every entity affected. I would say for the most part, yes, you are correct. The board would bear that cost. However, many entities have the ability to recover, if successful, some of those costs as they do, but right now it would stay the same as it is, which is the boards bear the cost of any adjudications, providing any hearings associated with
At least it sounds like we're going to be employing a lot of lawyers. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Boyce. Senator Milkovich, you have 2 minutes to close.
Well, and I think the comments of the opponent show exactly why we need a leveling of the playing field. She told you the story of Dr. Zawanka. What she left out is that Dr. Zawanka and his accuser went to a full-blown jury trial where the jury totally exonerated Dr. Zawanka. So if that's objectivity and looking at the totality of the record, she neglected to mention to you that Dr. Zawanka's case and the complainant against him went to a jury trial. The jury ruled fully in favor of Dr. Zawanka. She did say that the courts do not overturn administrative rulings. That's exactly the point. The standard of review is so weak that these boards are getting away with basically doing what they want. And it is true. These boards have not been overturned, for the most part, for decades. That's either that the boards are doing everything perfect, or the courts do not have a statutory mandate to closely look at what they do. I don't think anybody in this building who's been in the legislative building the last 12 months could say that these boards are doing everything that's so perfectly that they should not be overturned. The fact is the courts do not have a viable standard of review which needs to be addressed by statute. And she says, well, the purpose of the professional boards in adjudicating these cases, I would say it's justice. I don't think it's justice when the judge is paid by the board, the jury is the board, and the prosecutor is paid by the board. That's antithetical and inimical to due process. No one on this panel, no one in this room would want that kind of judicial system employed if their rights, their livelihood, their career, their reputation, their ability to make a living was on the line. And she said that clear and convincing evidence is the standard used in criminal cases. That's not true, as Senator Luno knows. The standard in criminal cases is beyond a reasonable doubt. Clear and convincing is the standard that's used in bar proceedings, and it's a fair standard when an administrative agency wants to take away your livelihood, your reputation, the 20 years of education that you have invested in something. And she said the discovery is already there. Well, if the right to discover is already present, then why would they be against this bill?
Begin to wrap up, Senator.
I understand. If they're not opposed to justice, and I understand her law firm is heavily involved in the process. However, my job, I'm not making fees off of regulatory cases at this point in my career. And I'm not sure I've ever broken even in handling a licensee ever. It's not about fees for New Orleans law firms. This is about justice for the thousands of professionals, doctors, lawyers, dentists, and other professionals in skilled occupations in the state of Louisiana that want a fair shake and not a shakedown in licensure proceedings.
Thank you. That's it. Board is clear. Senator Peacock moves that Senate Bill 187 be deferred. Is there any objection to deferring? There being no objection, that bill will be deferred. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members, for hearing our bill.
You're welcome.